Shanak Tehuty, Nutatete Tehuty, Anuk Tehuty. This is your brother Caprabata. And today I want to come at you with some more of that information. This time we're going to be talking about Tehuty, the teacher of humanity. But before we get started, fam, I like to pay homage to my ancestors, all my teachers, elders, and guides. I give you a nod of respect because I would not have come to the information without any of you. That include physical and non-physical entities who have assisted in my education. So, let's talk about Tehuty. And let's put it into an up-to-date perspective, as they would say, in today's modern world. Now, we find that we have access to much of what was once considered hidden knowledge. But nowadays, it's much easier to go online or even a bookstore and find much of what was considered secret knowledge at one point. The word occult means hidden. In fact, much of the symbolism expressing this knowledge is hidden in plain sight. A lot of this hidden in plain sight information is waiting to be deciphered by those with discernment and a deeper level of perception. Now, one thing we must understand is that the universe communicates with us through various omens, colors, numbers, plants, animals, people, including events and situations that we find ourselves in. It is said that Hermes Trismegistus is the father of the Western occult. Hermes has also been identified as Thoth. Thoth is a Hellenized pronunciation for Tehuty, or Djehuti. So the ancient netter of wisdom in all forms of higher knowledge still prevails today as the teacher of humanity. Even when it comes to the craft like Freemasonry, you discover that Hermes Trismegistus, who is none other than Tehuty, is the true father of the craft. So we go to the ancient netter of wisdom and we look him up. We find all kinds of information about him. Tehuty has been identified with deities of various cultures and civilizations. The Sumerians would have identified him with Nengashita, whose symbol appears as the Caduceus, which is now called the medical staff you may see on the side of an ambulance on your way to the hospital. Also, Tehuty has been identified as Quetzalcoatl, the father, or that is the feathered serpent. He's the feathered serpent and the deity of the Aztecs. And there are also those that identify him with prophets of the Abrahamic faith, such as Enoch and Idris. So Tehuty has been associated with the moon, timekeeping, language, and is given credit for introducing the writing system that is called the hieroglyphics, also known as the Medu Neter. So now Tehuty may have been introduced in various forms throughout the world, but we also see that he is known as the father of writing. The Medu Neter means sacred writings, and is the gift to humanity. His consort and Netert, or goddess, is Seshat, who is the keeper of the Medu Neter. She's the one who is actually the owner of the Medu Neter. It is Tehuty who introduces the Medu Neter, also known as the hieroglyphics, to humanity. Now, Tehuty is depicted as an ibis, or bird-headed being, and he's got a long beak, often shown writing on a tablet. And he's also associated with the baboon. And he has been identified as the god of mathematics, writing, and astronomy, and a keeper of secret teachings intended to develop humanity and therefore aid us in our evolution. So in various occult teachings, we find many writings on him and even rituals that are dedicated to him. It works for magicians, astronomers, alchemists, and everything else. This includes magicians like Aleister Crowley and Israel Regardie, just to name a few. Then you have works of Ra Nephra-Amen, who produced a work called the Medu Neter. It's about 7 volumes long. And it's also got a deck of cards that you can actually get to use for divination practices and reading the oracle. They call it the Oracle of Tehuty. So the teachings of Tehuty are also said to be contained in the works of the Hermetics, so that is the Hermetic literature, and even the Gnostic works, known as the Nag Hammadi text, the library that they dug up in Nag Hammadi back in 1940 something. I don't have the exact date, but anyway, it's recently discovered that these ancient texts were hidden from the church at the time of persecution. So fortunately, that information has come to us today, and you can actually go and order it offline. Get it from Barnes & Noble. So the Nag Hammadi text deals with the teachings of the Gnostics who dealt with reaching the divine state of awareness through what is called gnosis. Now, gnosis is knowledge that comes from beyond the five senses. It's to attain awareness and direct experience while overcoming falsehood. This is obtained through the true knowledge of self. Peace, my sister, Nanu Femi, and my brother, Rolly Osaji. Peace. So, it is this ancient divinity of wisdom who is not only considered the teacher of mankind, but also comes with a warning. See, humanity has been warned many times why it is necessary to obtain knowledge so that we can avoid being swept away with the reoccurring cycles of destruction that is visited upon our planet. Tehuty teaches us why it is necessary to study the forces of nature so that we may not only reach a higher level of awareness, but also evolve into luminous beings. So it's the wife of Tehuty who is the embodiment of the secret and sacred wisdom in the form of the papyrus. Her name is Seshat, as I mentioned earlier. It is up to her. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have paper, because she was actually the goddess of paper. She gave us paper, okay? Paper was invented in Kemet. Let's keep it real. It is also said that Djehuti is the husband of Ma'at. Ma'at is the lady of justice, balance, harmony, and living in truth. And it's also said that the Netter Djehuti taught humanity the wisdom of sacred body of knowledge known as alchemy. And alchemy is the art of transmutation. And transmutation is the process of converting base metals into precious metals. The most common example is converting lead into gold. Technically, the goal is to take anything of a lesser vibration and shift it to a higher vibration. In the teachings of internal alchemy, we learn to transmute sexual energy from mere lust to creativity. And it must be understood that sexual energy is life force energy, and it's through the cultivation of such energy that leads to self-mastery and the ability to manifest that which we need and desire. On another level, each of us have this ability, not only to raise our personal vibration, but we can spiritualize matter itself. So, when you get into alchemy, you discover that there are 7 steps of what is called the great work, or the magnum opus. The first is calcination, when the fires reduce any substance to ashes. This is symbolic of the reduction of one's ego. 2, you have dissolution, where the ashes are often dissolved in water, and the water is the subconscious. The ashes are the mental impurities of the mind. 3, separation, when this unwanted substance of one's being is separated and removed. 4, conjunction, the useful material is now recombined into something more refined. And 5, fermentation, a new germ, a ferment of the spirit now grows in one's being. This new type of germ is ready to evolve. In the 6th stage is called distillation or distillation. The boiling and the condensation leading to the purification of the ego to accept the higher wisdom of the sage, who we call Tehuty. And then you have coagulation. The self is now ready, not only refined, but reunited with the higher self and purpose, so that you're now not only ready to fulfill your destiny, but to be the vehicle of God on earth, also known as Netter, Lord Nebuchadnezzar, Osir, Amun-Ra, so forth. So the ancient wisdom teachings left us with a whole lot to meditate upon. And it speaks of a collective divine destiny, and also that each person have their own individual destiny upon the earth. And it's important to understand why each and every one of us are aspects of the divine, having our own experience, and in turn, giving the supreme being that operates through us and the universe a unique experience. So it cannot be stressed enough that each and every one of us have our own destiny as individuals. However, we also must keep in mind that we're unique vehicles and expressions of what we call the God Netter. Nebuchadnezzar, Olodumare, and Zombie, and so forth. African traditions did not separate the divine from the creation, even though they speak of the supreme being having taken off. The supreme being often is reported to have left pieces of itself within humanity. Now, some will call this intelligence that governs our universe an energy. Some may consider it to be a way of being, as in the Chinese philosophy, they talk about the Tao, and it is said that any attempt to describe the Tao will only put a limitation upon it. And the best way to experience, not just intellectualize about it, is to be one with it and live it. Now, even though the intellect has its role as far as being able to attach definition to things, believe it or not, the intellect can only get in the way at times. So many people may ask, well, how is this possible? It's because there's always the hows and whys of its conditioning, ways that we have been educated to ask about the hows and whys at the wrong time, not having faith in that higher part of ourselves that is all-knowing and has the ability to make discoveries. So this has limited us in many ways. So there are schools of thought that speak of Tehuty being the higher wisdom faculty, meaning that we have this aspect of us called Tehuty, the guide that makes the proper decisions from within. And it is this cosmic yet indwelling netter that functions within our being as a faculty that gives us the ability to reason and use our cognitive powers to pay attention to things going on in the world around us, as well as decode the various patterns of energy. So if it makes sense, it helps us to make sense of what's going on in the world around us, as well as the world within us. Because everything you see outside of you is a reflection of what's going on within your being. This can be done using oracles, along with mediumistic trance, and methods where you can receive messages from spirit, or you become the vehicle that channels the message of the spirit. In the comedic story of Haru versus Set, we see that Haru attempts to fight Set on his own terms. The two would always come to a stalemate, and Ma'at could not prevail because Set is the master of warfare and was far too much ahead of young Haru, who is also less experienced. The only way that Haru could defeat Set was with the wise counsel of Tehuty. Tehuty represents that conscience that we have within us that tells us, oh, you might not want to do this, you might want to do that instead. And a lot of times we don't listen to it is when we find ourselves in trouble. Tehuty often speaks to us as our first mind, as our first thought. That thought process that tells you, hey, you know, something ain't right here. And sometimes Tehuty will bring you a message in your sleep. And when you wake up, all you got to do is write it down. Because when you start moving throughout the day, you start losing the message, you see. So in order not to be taken down by Set, Haru had to understand divine harmony and how to live within the cosmic order of divine justice. And this is where Tehuty sets in. In the society in which we live, we've been taught that there's good and evil. But it's also a matter of perspective. There's also the concept of being able to balance out the two brain hemispheres. One aspect of us being the intellect, the other being the intuitive faculty. Now recently, there has been much dispute on whether or not this theory scores proper validation. And it's an actual truth. But we do see that there is necessity in needing to balance out the intellect and the intuitive. This is where your public education has gone wrong. So when you look at the Yoruba tradition, you have what is called the Odu. Odu Obarameji teaches us that one hand washes the other. Ma'at is always about bringing balance and harmony. A bird needs two wings to fly because a bird will look funny trying to fly with one wing. It just ain't gonna work. But when Haru was about to vanquish Set, it talks about how Tehuty interfered because Haru and Set represents two opposing forces that are necessary to sustain existence itself. So the internal struggle, it provides us with an opportunity for growth. If Haru is allowed to kill Set and vice versa, there would be no friction to produce the ever reoccurrence of existence itself. Life lives through heat. In order for heat to be produced, there has to be friction. So the universe has these two sides that keeps it in harmony. Some people call it yin yang. Some people call it good and evil, concepts and so forth. But you need that push and pull, okay? You need that to hold this whole universe together. That's why it's there. So if you look at a deck of cards, there's always the devil or joker in there because the joker keeps it interesting. The villains in the comics keep it interesting. There always got to be some negative so that the positive can have a purpose. Because you look at the word positive, it contains the word pole or poles. Without the negative, it's not going to go nowhere. You need something negative to reinforce the positive so that the positive could have a purpose. And by the way, here's the thing. The first thing to begin in the universe was negative, not positive. The electron is negatively charged. That was the first thing to move in the universe was the electron. Okay? It negates. It's not positive. It does not pose. It moves. Understand? So you need that. You need that push and that pull. So anyway, so life is friction. For birth to come, life sustains itself by feeding on life. When something is born, something else dies. This is the way of the universe. The universe itself uses this to sustain itself. It's an organism. The all is mind and the universe is mental. However, we as individuals are but expressions of the all with our own unique references as life forms. So backing up a little, it depends on which school of thought or even paradigm you're coming from. You might say that the intellectual part and intuitive aspects or both aspects of the mind are ways in which consciousness can become aware of itself and express itself as consciousness in a form. So in this regard, we understand the governing aspects of consciousness, that we are each vessels, or should I say vehicles, of the divine consciousness that express itself in unique forms in different ways. So because of this, we tend to forget our divine origin in order to bring meaning to our experiences. Understood? So to help us remember and actually, in lack of a better term, help us to recall our divine origin, because the highest aspects of us never forget anything, but we do lose recall. So we look at the words remember. And you're basically bringing back all those parts of you that was separated to do various things and experience different things as you went through life's traumas. So let's look at people's childhood traumas. It took place in your early stages in life, and therefore people find themselves being triggered because they've been consciously or unconsciously reminded of an event or a situation that took place at some remote time in their lives. This trigger is a trance state. So whatever the case may be, life experiences often cause us to forget our divine origin. In many surviving African traditions, it speaks of us having forgotten an actual mission on earth given to us from the land of the ancestors. Lord of sacred times and seasons is one of the names of Tehuty. Tehuty deals with time. Tehuty teaches us about time. In some times, he's depicted as the lunar deity. Remember, he is credited as the inventor of writing. It's actually Sishot, but okay. He's the Lord of wise counsel, the Lord of the city of A, the ibis-headed Lord of scribes, the inventor of the 365-day calendar, inventor of geometry, astronomy, alchemy, and so forth. It is said that Ra, the sun god as they call him, received counsel from Tehuty. And sometimes Tehuty is understood to be the heart of Ra, as well as the tongue. So Djehuti is over the principal 8 primordial deities. These deities are known as the Ogdoad, Amun, the hidden, Amenet, the revealed. Amun is the masculine, Amenet's the feminine. Anytime you have a T at the end of a name, is usually depicted as feminine, especially when you're dealing with divinities and so forth. So you have Amun, who is the hidden, Amenet, the revealed, Nun, the undifferentiated, Nunet, the differentiated, Ku, the radiating light, Kuket, the solidified light. By the way, everything around you is light slowed down in physical form. Your light slowed down, held together with 14,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. So who did I miss? You got Ku, the radiating light, Kuket, the solidified light, Hu, who is the limitless, and Huhet, who is the defined. These are the 8 primordial energies that hold our universe together, and these survive in the Yi Ching as the 8 immortals that manifest in the trigrams when one utilizes the Yi Ching divination system, the total combination made up by pairing them through divination of 64. And then when you look at other methods of divination in Africa, in different parts of the world, like for instance, the patterns that go into 16 times 16 equaling 256, which are the combinations found in West African systems like Ifa. It is through the study of nature and the universe itself in which we make the greatest discoveries and claim our divine heritage. So we have other systems of divination that use forms similar with this binary sequence, like geomancy, similar to Ifa, similar to the Yi Ching. We got the priests of Tehuty were the keepers of the ancient records. If you look at Tehuty, you see that he's writing, but you also see that as an ibis, he has a beak that's meant to peck in the sand, because diviners would often draw markings in the sand and count the marks and then mark the pattern. This system survives in West Africa. Okay? Same system. You know. So anyway, the priesthood of Tehuty were not only the keepers of the records, but they were disciplined in mathematics and divination. And it's important to understand that Tehuty encourages us to engage the world and make discoveries about its nature. We must know ourselves in order to have a well-rounded understanding of our role in the grand scheme of things. Because each individual have their own unique destiny and should therefore be in alignment with it. When we're not in alignment, our energy will be misaligned and we will find ourselves feeling tired and fatigued or simply lacking our edge, which is important that you don't get yourself stuck in the matrix of a 9 to 5, especially if it's not your life purpose. You have to find what your life purpose is, and this is done through divination and other forms of communicating with spirit. But you see, a lot of times spirit is communicating with us. It's just that we forgot how to listen to it. We don't pay attention to our dreams, or, we're so busy rushing. We have an alarm clock and it startles you awake, so therefore you can't remember nothing. So I suggest you start putting a dream book by your bed or by your nightstand and write your dreams down and then pay attention to those dreams and then look up the symbols, and then you might discover that those dreams were telling you something very profound and was quite accurate according to things that are going on in your life. You see, it's very important that people begin to understand why, we have been blessed with the ability to see beyond. But we have to trust that there's more to us than just these physical bodies, because we're also spiritual beings. We've been told a whole bunch of things. One minute they tell you that you evolved from monkeys, and then they send you to church to say that Earth was created in 6 days, and God rested on the 7th. You don't know which way to go because they confuse you. They tell you that you gotta believe this when you go to church, and then you gotta get these grades when you go to school. So they start off messing with your mind, and you grow up confused, not knowing which way to go. When it comes to spirituality and your education, through the education system, they get your mind all messed up. So this is why it's important to tap into that inner Tehuty, because Tehuty is always talking to us. We just got to listen. Tehuty is that innermost consciousness that resides within every human psyche. We must know ourselves and be well-rounded, understanding that our role in the grand scheme of things is to fulfill our destiny and become the vehicle and vessel of God on earth. Each individual have their own unique destiny. It is Tehuty that brings us the art of writing. However, to utilize the words of power, aka divine utterances of Tehuty, it takes you the ability to feel what it is that you're saying. Study the metal netter and try to sound each word and see how it feels throughout your body. Pay attention to how words make you feel. A lot of times we're speaking words of power and don't even realize it. So, we also have the ability to create and destroy with our very utterances. This is why our heart and tongue must be in harmony. A lot of times, the reason why we look around us and we see people that are confused, or we hear a whole bunch of crap that people just make up as they go, their heart and their mind are not in harmony. They say one thing, do the other. That's why nothing manifests in their lives. When you look throughout Kemetic literature, it talks about Ptah having the heart of Tehuty, being able to speak things into existence. Each and every one of us have that ability to speak things into existence. But the secret is to align your heart with your tongue. See, I'm going to share something with you. The brain, it's powerful. But you know what sends out even more powerful waves of energy is the heart. Heart waves go further and affect your environment more than brain waves do. You want to develop your heart energy? Focus on the heart center and go, ah. Just focus on that. See it expanding from time to time. And just sit still. A lot of times you can pick up on what somebody else is saying, what they're really saying. Not what they're telling you, but what they're really saying. By just aligning yourself up with their heart center. Heart to heart. Literally. Try it sometimes. I'll be seeing where I used to see brothers try to go and talk to these sisters, and they be standing all sideways and looking all weird and wonder why she rejects them. See, well, she's not feeling you, bro. Try standing heart to heart. It'll be a difference. Anyway, a little bit of game thrown out there for humanity. But try it though, because we're judged by our hearts. When you look at the scales of Ma'at, you don't see a brain on one side of the scales and a feather out on the other. You see the heart. You don't want your heart to be heavy. So it's good to forgive yourself so that you can forgive others and move on. Not because you're some punk or you're some sucker, but if you keep on holding to all this weight, it will stop the things that you want to see manifesting in your life from manifesting. Now you can let it be a motivator, okay? But you got to transmute that energy. You can act, you can do some art, poetry, create something. You can transform emotional energy into creativity and intuition. Well, anyway, family, I'm going to have to cut this short. You know, brother got things that he got to do. But I love to come back and talk to you sisters and brothers some more. We're going to build about some stuff. I hope you enjoyed this cast on Tehuty, Teacher of Humanity. We'll talk some more. Until then, be safe. Uncle Ucha Sanab. Peace.